Welcome everyone to the Dungeon Mother. My name is Tina, and today we are going to go over Campaign Log 2 of The Waves of Time. Last we left our heroes, Persephone, Krakatoa, and Kahame had battled against strange creatures on the road through the Tears Plains. They encountered a Xing Mao, who claimed to be a messenger from Sedna. Varn moves headlong towards the nearest roadhouse. The wheels of Varn's cart grind into the earth, pressing pebbles and dirt into a trail to mark its journey along the road through the Tears Plains. Mountains tower skyward as the setting sun slips behind the horizon. The trees of the woods grow in dark shadows as a fog bleeds over the mountaintops and into the valley, swirling heavy white clouds that surge and creep along the tall grasses that surround this domestic roadhouse. An orange glow illuminates the windows as the fog casts lively shadowed figures on the ground as these figures gamble, drink, and laugh within the roadhouse. From the front of the cart, Varn turns to the two of them, and as he halts his large beast that hauls his traveling shop, he says, "How about the two of you go on ahead? I'm going to go and get Bebin settled in and get the goods secured. I'm looking forward to Frocky's woolly-pid stew. It's a delight neither of you should miss." With Varn's promise of good food and an inn's promise of warm beds, Kahame and Seth take a step inside. So I have a few things to show. I spent some time to craft the tavern my players were staying in, and it was constructed through a collection of printed textures that I had illustrated, along with cardboard that was cut and glued to make the appropriate shape. I got some inspiration from Black Magic Crafts, but I didn't exactly go the route that he would probably go, being a professional and all. But that just goes to show no matter what you do, your players are going to be happy with whatever you make, as long as you spend the time on the game itself. If you make something really cool, they're gonna love it. The moment I brought it out, there was so much excitement, a lot of energy from my group, and for me, it was a joyful moment. This has fueled many other creations that you'll get to see in the next log. So let's go ahead and get back to our players. The wooden door swings wide, revealing the bright and lively interior of the Keystone Roadhouse. A young, strapping boy with messy ginger hair and a patterned tunic is cleaning off a wooden tray near a rack at the entrance. Drawn to the player's arrival, and he smiles brightly. "Welcome to the Keystone Roadhouse, bar table." Seth and Kahame muse over their thoughts and decide upon a table, and the waiter smiles happily, saying, "Right this way." The young lad leads them through the busy tavern. Most of the customers appear to be travelers as well as locals from the town of Westgate, just a few leagues down the road. Most of the waiters at the inn comprised of 2 teens, including your current waiter, and a 6-year-old girl in pigtails that bears a smile with a missing tooth. 2 women remain behind the bar, cooking away in the kitchen. One is a very elderly woman, and the other is a middle-aged mistress. The mistress hands bowls of meaty stew from over the half-wall to what appears to be her husband. A glint of joy in her eyes as she works and exchanges a loving smile with the barkeep as he takes meals and prepares the alcohol for his patrons. In the corner of the inn is a band of knights that watch as the players walk through. A group of patrons in the corner of the inn watches the players. Eyes narrowed, wearing knightly garments, and one of them bears an emblem, a sword with an 8-pointed star at its tip. Nearest to the table that the boy sees them to is a massive grimoire with 2 pointed cat ears that poke out from behind the book. A faint glow illuminates the edges of the tome, as well as the cat's ears. Persephone's interest is piqued, but Kahame seems more focused on the promise of a meal. The server boy pipes up and offers the players the menu. Some items on the list are Honey Pine Dew and the Phoenix, which are the 2 specialty drinks on the house, as well as sweet rolls, and then you also have Frocky's woolly-pid stew, Bulle spinach soup with hellfire peppers, and deep-fried drake tail. A lot of these items I found on D&D Speak, which is something that I'll go ahead and put in the link below. So, Kahame orders deep-fried drake tail along with the phoenix, and Persephone partakes in the woolly-pid stew with the honey pine dew. The boy leaves with a smile and informs them that he will be right back with their orders. Yet, despite all of this, Persephone's attention is still drawn to the small Xing Mao with the massive grimoire. So much so that she finds herself standing and approaching their table. She inspects the cover of the book and takes note of a symbol, that of a nautilus shell. Persephone starts the conversation, asking the kitten what she's reading. The young cat's ears twitch before she sets the book down and smiles brightly. "Oh, my spell book. I'm going over some of my incantations. Nai told me you should be coming, so I figured I should prepare." Taken aback by this response, the two question the kitten further. She explains that the nautilus shell around her neck is her Nai, her grandmother, which is the source of the glowing light from before. She begins to fill them in on who she is, to an extent, and they invite her to her table, sharing their food and more or less taking the kitten under their wing, considering the fact that she is just a child, and they are willing to help Ping on her mission, which is to resurrect her grandmother. As they are served their food and discover an interesting side effect to consuming the phoenix drink offered by the tavern, a sinister development arises. 5 knights from the other side of this crowded and jovial tavern darken their corner with grim glowering, pointed in their direction. The knight with a peppered beard leans closer to his friends and whispers to them, glancing between them and the player's table. "We need to inform those scouts we saw earlier. They mentioned Dragonborn were in the area, and to see one here is a disgrace." The man with a strong jaw and savage scars over his cheeks and eyes responds to his friend. "Or kill it here and drag its corpse back to their camp. The last time we ignored Dragonborn, they blew up Strassport. After the fall of Lord Croesus, we've had nothing but trouble with their kind. Let's not forget, even those that claim citizenship here are taking the banner beside their brethren. But there is one, there are many more to replace those scaly bastards." The senior of the 3 shakes his head. "People have come to the inn to drink and eat with their families in peace. Let us just speak with the scouts, and they will take this Dragonborn as quietly as they can, with little resistance. Lord Croesus, despite everything, was a good lord, and though it is a shame of the circumstances, we should not frighten the people more than they already are." This receives an angered expression from the scarred man before he snaps at his fellow knight. The peppered beard knight speaks. "Solennimus speaks well, brother. I agree with him on one thing. The people should be protected, and should believe that they are. Come, let's go find those scouts." The knights stand after their heated conversation, the scarred knight glaring over at their table as they head to the entrance. However, before they even make it to the door, several people from the inn have taken notice of the tone of the knights, standing between them and their exit. Among them, the teen who had waited at their table is using a wooden tray as a feeble shield. Many of the patrons from the inns are dashing for the door in fear of the incoming fight. The young boy asks, "Sirs, we're going to have to ask you to kindly sit back down. To note, my players did not receive this information due to a failed perception check, so the sudden activity between the knights and the inn patrons came to them as a surprise. They understood that the knights were unhappy with their presence, yet they knew nothing more than that. Here, combat is imminent. The haughty knight with the scarred face becomes frustrated with the patrons of the inn and states that they are obstructing justice. One of the patrons, who is an adventurer, is armed, and knowing that a knight cannot walk away from a challenge, he barks his challenge to all 3 of the knights. The scarred knight flies forward and attacks. The players are at this point starstruck. The innkeepers are begging for the conflict to stop, pleading with them to not shed any more blood, but the less reasonable knight begins to cut down those who are opposing him one by one, completely ignoring the pleas of the owner of the inn. At this point, Kahame decides to step in, using Krakatoa to lend flame into the combat at the command of "Krakatoa, touch!" The bartender draws close and gathers his son out of the conflict. With a well-placed strike from his trident, Kahame takes down the aggressive knight, while a customer from the inn dispatches the second. Seth remains with Ping, protective over the newfound kitten once the fighting had started. The 3rd knight surrenders immediately, and is revealed to him later that Kahame is not a Dragonborn, but a Tawari. Embarrassed for the actions of the knights he was associated with, he swears himself to Kahame, begging to remedy the misunderstanding and demanding to be indebted to him. Kahame agrees to Solennimus's request, nicknaming him Sal after hearing the length of his name. The owners of the inn, however, are uneasy and fearful, and their attention is drawn to the entrance of the inn. A guttural howl fills the room as the blood of the knights and fellow patrons leaks into the tavern floor. With a bang, the door lurches open, and the lanterns in the tavern dim, a wind stealing their flame as the fog from before creeps in and a stench wafts in with it. From the fog, a man dressed in pitch armor floats in, as if walking is beneath him. The armor itself is darkened, appearing to match the tone of this figure. Through the helm that he wears, there are pale white eyes that peer through the sockets, and a pale, leathery tail that curls and switches in some semblance of annoyance. A voice creeps through the armor of this strange floating figure. "Froggy, you do my lady a great service, and you and your family will be protected so long as you keep providing. I do hope that this will suffice as payment for your sacrifice." A bag is tossed and clatters on the wood of the tavern floor. Several opal stones spill out from the leather sack. A crimson, bloody cloud swirls from the center of each stone before encompassing the entirety of these gems in a violent color. With the payment scattered on the tavern floor, several ghouls clamber through the door to retrieve the bodies from the inn. An air of silent terror floods through the people of this tavern, and their eyes wander to the elderly woman. I may have taken some inspiration from Matt Covile's channel and his talks on villains. So, for those of you who don't know, Matt Covile has a wide array of talks and videos for tips and tricks for being a dungeon master, as well as tips for players and world building. I highly recommend going to his channel and subscribing. In this case, Raucus the Rancid is merely a henchman dedicated to the success of his master, Maeve the Mad Mage. He is also an important figure to both Persephone and Kahame, as he is the one who assaulted Kahame's village, murdered his brother, and for Seth, he is her mother's henchman. Both of the players are stunned, terrified, and they remain where they are, both frightened of taking on something leagues ahead of them in power. Raucus pays them no real attention, aside from a glance and a wicked smile, before he departs once more through the entrance of the inn. Once Raucus disappears through the door, the players investigate Froggy, pressing her with questions on Raucus the Rancid as they learn that Maeve the Mad Mage is building something, and Raucus has been collecting bodies for her. He pays those who take the bloodstones from him, and offers protection from the war, as well as from the forces that his master is building. Her fortress is somewhere in the mountains beyond Strassport. That is all she knows. Somehow the bloodstones let Maeve and her general know when there is a murder nearby, and Froggy assumes that they might have a minor scrying ability on them. She offers them a free room and board for the inconvenience, and Kahame and Seth take it without question. They settle into their new room, asking Ping questions here and there, and eventually they begin to toss the bones from their meals that were brought up to them in a playful manner. They discover the prophetic power of Ping's grimoire, and Kahame receives an endearing message from his deceased brother. Finding peace in the words from the grimoire, Kahame decides to settle down. However, Seth learns something sinister from the book, and she discovers her lineage derives from a horrible demon lord by the name of Baelot, leaving her unsettled and unable to rest for the rest of the evening. And with that, our second session is complete. I hope you all enjoy our tale so far, and keep your eyes open for the next Waves of Time installment. Until next time, have a good day.